So the Intelli range of products from Autogrow. Let's get just a little bit about me. So I have lived in Humboldt County for over 20 years, and I graduated from Humboldt State University. I've got 18 years of experience in the hydroponics industry, serving small home gardeners to very large multi-acre farms. I've served on the board of directors for the Hydroponic Merchants Association, and I've done on-site training and installations all over the world. And who is Autogrow? So Autogrow has been around since 1994. Autogrow is committed to creating and providing the most amazing solutions we can come up with to solve the world's most difficult problems in producing crops. We believe growers should have affordable, accessible, and easy-to-use innovation 24/7 anywhere in the world. With a global headquarters in our Auckland office, growers and resellers in over 37 countries, Autogrow provides intelligent hardware, software, and data solutions for single compartment environments through to large-scale, fully automated greenhouses and warehouses. Utilizing a team of software designers, engineers, and horticultural technology experts, Autogrow continues to push innovation boundaries to gain the best results for growers. So we're going to do something a little bit different on this webinar. I have a couple polls because I want to get a feel for who's listening and what type of growers you are. So I'm going to start with the first one. So I want to find out how many growers do we have that are indoor growers versus greenhouse growers. If you could go ahead and answer that for me, that would be great. We'll just give it a couple more seconds so everybody has a chance. Wow, almost exactly 50-50. Awesome. Okay, cool. So we're really here to talk about our Autogrow, our new Autogrow Online, but I want to just do a little bit of an overview to start with. So why do we need automation? The first thing that everybody thinks of is labor savings, right? Oh, save me some time. That's fantastic, and it's very true. A simple kind of calculation is if you think that it would take you between 15 and 30 minutes a day to manage your reservoir, so measuring your EC, measuring your pH, and then adjusting based on your readings. If you did that 2.5 to 3.5 hours a week that you're spending on that at $30 an hour, let's say, you could be saving yourself about $100 a week by having that be automated. So labor savings, for sure, that is a huge, huge aspect of automation. But even more important for me is that we have healthier plants. When a plant is fed the proper nutrients and the pH is balanced in the water and they're irrigated on time every day, the plants will be healthier. When the environment for the plants is ideal, so we've got perfect humidity levels, the ideal CO2 for the plants in their growing stage, the light levels are dialed in, the temperatures are right, the plants will be healthier. The less stress you put a plant under, the healthier it will be. You can also avoid pests and diseases by managing the environment properly. So healthier plants come from using automation. But the biggest one is risk management. And I really think this is something that people they overlook a lot. They think automation is a bit expensive and I don't know why I would need it. It's all about risk management. If you look out at your greenhouse right now or your grow room and you look at the value of the crop that you're growing, if you lost that entire crop, would you be out $1,000, $5,000, $200,000? I mean, there's a lot of money in that crop. So investing in some automation that would allow you to know immediately if anything went outside of your desired set points, and you would get texts and email alerts to tell you so that you could go and fix it right away. So that you didn't have any crop loss. That risk management is the most important part of automation in my mind, because these crops are very high value and we want to make sure that we don't have any crop loss. And the way to do that is to make sure that no matter where you are in the world, you know exactly what's happening in your grow room or in your greenhouse. So I'm going to ask another question here. I'm interested to know how you grow. So are you growing using hydroponics? Are you a soil grower? What other type of, maybe in some other type of media? I'll give it just a couple minutes. Awesome. We got a lot of hydroponic growers today and some other media growers and some soil growers. That's great. Okay, cool. So we're just going to do a little overview of what our hardware offerings are. So we offer the IntelliDose. The IntelliDose has been on the market for over 10 years, and it is a workhorse. This is an automated pH and EC doser that also comes with irrigation options. So we're going to be getting into the software user interface here in just a minute, but I wanted you to have an idea about what the hardware looked like so you had a bit of an understanding. So what you're looking at here is the IntelliDose controller, and this is the whole kit. So as you see, it has an EC and a pH probe that it comes with, so it's monitoring EC, pH, and the temperature of the water. On the top right is that little plastic pot is what we call the sample pot, and that holds the EC and the pH probe to make sure that they stay safe, that they always have a good sample of what's happening in the reservoir on them, makes them really easy to get to calibrate. So that's this is kind of the hardware for the IntelliDose. The IntelliClimate, which is our climate controller, so this monitors temperature, humidity, CO2, and light levels. There's the controller. The white box to the right of the controller is the environment sensor. As you see that little circle on the top, that's the actual light sensor. So it's monitoring the temperature, the humidity, the CO2, the light levels in your grow room constantly, and then making decisions based off of the readings. Those relay boxes, the relay boxes that you see are what we plug all of our components into. So CO2 injectors, our lights, our dehumidifiers, our fans, everything runs through the relay boxes. I'm going to do one more poll and then we'll be done with the polls for today. But I want to know a little bit about your comfort level with automation, kind of get a feel for who's listening now. Are we brand new to automation, a little bit about it, you kind of done some research, or you're an expert because you've been using it forever? Cool. Oh, awesome. Okay, so we got kind of a lot of the people in the I know a bit option, which is awesome. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close that. So this is our newest product, and this is a big deal about the webinar today, is that we're releasing our Intelli Grow and our Intelli Link. So what the Intelli Link does is this replaces the PC requirement that's been around for the last 10 years with these controllers, that you used to have a PC connected that had to remain online 24/7 so that you could set up, kind of really bulky remote access. The Intelli Link replaces that. So the Intelli Link works as a kind of Wi-Fi hub that you can connect 4 controllers to. And this will allow your controllers to live on the cloud so that you have the ability to remotely access them from anywhere with a web browser. The Intelli Link, it can connect through your Wi-Fi at your grow site. So it's a really easy setup and a really easy way to get all of your controllers on the cloud. You can still, of course, use a PC, and now we actually have Mac capabilities, which is amazing and awesome since so many of the growers use Macs. So we now have opened it up to all of the Intelli line can be connected no matter what type of computer you're using, no matter what Wi-Fi network you're on, we can all have remote access to it. So now that we've done a bit about that, I am going to go and we are going to go log in to the new Autogrow software. So this is what we are so excited to show you today because it is awesome. I'm going to go ahead and log in here. Okay, log in and do our demo unit. Okay, we'll do just I'm going to do an overview of this. So we're going to talk a bit about how the account settings work, because I want to talk to you about notifications, because this is a really big deal of the risk management that I brought up before. It's important that you have this set up to be able to email you and send you a text if there's anything that goes outside of your set points. So right now, we've got the ability to add up to 3 different email addresses, which is fantastic for your growing facility because you may have an administrator, the head grower, and then another grower or employee that all need to know if something goes wrong so that everybody can go fix it. And you have the ability to get texts if something was to go outside of your set points, like I mentioned earlier. We have currently 3 languages. So you have English, Spanish, or Mandarin. The ability to choose different devices. So we have this plan that we're on right now. We can run up to 6 devices. We've just got 2 connected. And then just your basic account settings. To set notifications up, you simply go here and tell the unit that you want email notifications and SMS notifications and it'll send you a text and an email to kind of say, okay, you've now signed up for that. This is the key part about risk management, is knowing the minute something goes wrong. Now, once we've kind of got our account settings going, we're going to talk dosers first. So with the IntelliDose, as you can see, the dashboard has been it's been updated to be really simple to understand. Anybody can take a quick glance of this, you know, immediately what the EC, pH, and temperature is in your reservoir. Very easy to understand. I'm going to start with configuration type settings. So we'll just come down here to the bottom. Always start with general. So with general, basics, temperature units, date format. We have the ability with the IntelliDose to measure in EC, CF, or TDS. And in TDS, we have the ability to measure in the 500, the 700, or the 640 scale. Sometimes it's hard to know which parts per million scale to use. So we usually recommend that you talk to the nutrient manufacturer of your favorite nutrient line and find out which one they've set their feed scale, their schedule based on. For today, we're just going to go ahead and stick to EC. You've got times for the day start and the day end. So we're going to be mentioning this throughout the presentation. But the day start and the day end, if you're in a greenhouse, that can be, you know, sunrise and sunset. If you're in a grow room, you can actually manipulate that time period. It doesn't have to be necessarily when the lights are on or off. And it doesn't have to be, you know, like in a greenhouse, it doesn't have to be only when the sun is up. So if you want to have different settings, like a different nutrient setting for a different time of the day, or you can actually set that. So you'll see in here that we talk a little bit about changing the EC set points throughout the day. This is important for different types of growing. For example, leafy green growers in NFT systems that are continuously dosing. If you're in a place like Texas and it's July and it's the middle of the afternoon and it is hot and your plants are transpiring fast, you want to make sure that your EC levels are lower because we don't want to get tip burn on the lettuce. So you may have a EC set point for, you know, noon, or let's say 7 a.m. till noon, and then from 5 p.m. on, but you have a much lower EC set point from that noon to 5 p.m. to make sure that we are not getting any type of tip burn. So that's why setting this day start and day end, you can actually just manipulate that time to have different set points throughout the day. Different growers growing different crops will experiment with that. A lot of different R&D facilities can have different set points. Then we have the advanced settings. So this is just some of the real basics with an IntelliDose. There's the choice between proportional dosing or sequential dosing. So proportional dosing is used when you have a very large reservoir, let's say 5,000 gallons. That could be all fresh water, and we want to get the nutrient levels up fast. So proportional dosing means that you start with a very high dose time, and then as we get closer to our set points, we lower the dose time so that we don't overshoot. For most growers, sequential dosing is a better option. That just means that we're dosing part A, then part B, then part C, then part D, and we dose at the same time every time. It's just maintaining the EC balance in the reservoir. And then we have some fail safes here. So disabling the EC and the pH dosing if we fall too far outside of the range. This can happen if a probe fails, a probe gets, let's say, taken out of the sample pot or falls out of the reservoir, which has happened, and is all of a sudden reading 0. If your EC probe is reading 0, you don't want it to just keep dosing, trying to get there. If it falls below 1, you want to make sure that it just disables the dosing. We also have this nice little friendly reminder to maintain your IntelliDose and to calibrate your probes. It is recommended that you calibrate your probes at least once a week. pH probes are known to just fail in a minute. I mean, they will be working one day and the next day they can just, you know, not be working properly. If you're not calibrating on a regular basis, this could happen and you could be seeing a reading saying 6.2 and you think that that's fine. If it's not working properly, you could be at a very different pH than that. It can have really detrimental effects on your plants. So it's important that you maintain it and calibrate on a regular basis. When setting up the unit, there are different sets. So you have 9 outputs on the IntelliDose, and it's up to the user to define what those 9 outputs are going to be used for. So some growers will use all 9 outputs for their nutrients. They'll use an A and a B nutrient plus a bunch of different additives and supplements, and then a pH adjuster. Other people want to use the irrigation stations. So you have up to 4 irrigation stations that you can use, which of course, if you can do the math, if you did 4 irrigation stations, you would have 5 outputs for nutrients, pH, and additives. So I've set this up today to do both pH up and down, to do a 6-part nutrient blend and 1 irrigation station. As you can see, because I've got pH up and down, it will only allow me to do 6 nutrients. If I change this to pH lower, I'll have the ability to add on a 7th nutrient supplement. When you see that we can do pH raise and lower, and I check on both, I want to clarify the unit will not dose up and down at the same time. It will go in one direction, either raise or lower. But you can have a pump for each designated so that you can remotely toggle between raise and lower. You won't find a controller on the market that does both. It's dangerous to do up and down because it would constantly be going raise, lower, and you would be getting a nutrient lockout. So for right now, we'll go ahead and do that. Oh. And I do apologize, guys. I got a note from my text down there that the cloud server was going to be having some issues this morning, so it just fell off. Let's see if I can just reboot this real quick. There we go. Okay, so we are there. So I've gone ahead and we've saved this. As you can see, there's a couple different settings here. So we've got a different EC for day and night because I want to show you how that works. You've got the mute buzzer setting. This is the buzzer that's on the actual controller itself. Very important that you have that muted, especially if you are in like a residential area, so that if an alarm was to go off, that your actual controller wasn't making an alarm. But very helpful if you're in a greenhouse where you may have workers and the controller could be across the greenhouse, and if something went wrong, the buzzer would go off and they could run over and see what had happened. I also have set this to use the scheduled settings. We've got some choices for irrigation. You can irrigate day and night. You can irrigate at the same time each day, or you can irrigate during the day only. So just kind of a few settings here for you. So now that we've done the configuration, we've kind of got it all set and ready to go. I'm going to start back up at the top. So we've got it configured. You've got your EC settings. So you're reading 0.5 right now. When you click on the EC circle, you'll see that your alarm settings, if it goes below 0.3 or above 2.0, we have the alarm enabled. That means that you'll get an email and a text that will tell you that your EC has fallen outside of that realm. If I change this and I say that I want to know if it goes a minimum of 0.7, let's say. Then this is going to go red so that you immediately, when you log in, you can see anything in the red means that you're outside of your alarm settings. So it's really quick at a glance for anybody logging in to know if there's anything that's had an issue at all. Oh, actually I have to make that so it goes outside of there. There we go. If you don't want to have your alarms enabled, for example, if you click over here on the nutrient temperature, if your nutrient temperature goes below 55 or above 80, you may want to get an alert or you may not. You can enable or disable alarms here very simply by just clicking on the enabled button. The alarm delay is important because we want to make sure that we're not just getting random alarms all throughout the day and night. So we have a 3-minute detent in here, which means that we are going to wait until it is in the alarm, outside of your alarm settings for at least 3 minutes. If after 3 minutes the setting has not changed, the set point or the reading has not changed, then you're going to get the alarm. That allows for the occasional air bubble that passes by a probe, or if somebody just wiggles the probe around and they're messing with it, doing something, that you don't just get random text throughout the day. So if you come down here, you'll see the set points. This big red line is important to remind you that the scheduling has been enabled, which means that we have a schedule that's already been preset, so you can't actually change. If you see, I can change the pH, but I can't change mix ratios here. So if you wanted to change your pH and say, we wanted to go to 6.0, you can do that here. And you can change from pH lower to raise. So you can do that remotely, not a problem. Go ahead and do lower. And then we'll talk just a bit about dose times and intervals. So dose times and intervals. pH, or the nutrient and pH dose time, is how long the pump stays on whenever it's been activated. So the probes are reading and getting data about every 3 to 5 seconds. You're getting an EC and a pH reading, so it's constantly updated. But we want to make sure that we are only dosing, that we're not dosing so often that we're overdosing. So we have dose intervals and dose times. The dose interval is how long we wait between doses, and the dose time is how long the pump stays on. So the way that this is set right now is that though we're getting readings, let's just say every 5 seconds, every 10 minutes the unit is allowed to dose. So we'll dose nutrients, we'll turn the pumps on for 5 seconds each. That doses the nutrients. If the pH needs to be dosed, it runs for 3 seconds. And we'll wait 10 minutes and we'll see what happens. We'll see, did the pH get down low enough? Did the EC rise up enough? If after 10 minutes the EC is still too low, we'll dose again. And we'll do that every 10 minutes until we get to our set points. Same for the pH. Now, this is really important because this is where the dialing in for your reservoir comes in. So it's really important depending on reservoir size. Obviously, dose times are going to be different if you have a 100-gallon reservoir versus a 5,000-gallon reservoir. Dose intervals will change based on the size of your reservoir. We also can adjust the dilution rates of your nutrients to make sure that we take into account how long it's going to take for the change. And it's really important to know how you're growing. Continuous dosing NFT is different than batch dosing for, let's say, drained to waste tomatoes. Soil growers will have different dosage rates than you'll have for, different like aeroponic type growers. So this is where we can really help you. There is a spot on the webinar panel to ask questions, and I would encourage you to start putting questions in there if you have them. But we can also set a time after the webinar to have a one-on-one conversation if you have some very specific questions about your growing project and how this could work for you. You'll also see the irrigation station. So the irrigation station will allow you to choose how long to irrigate and how often. So in this set point here, you've got 3-minute irrigations every 10 minutes. And as you can see, you can change your irrigations, can go down to the seconds, and you can have them run, every 3 days. It really just depends on what's best suited for your growing operation. I want to talk a bit about that schedule. So if you come up here and you see this little icon, this is going to take you into the scheduling feature for the IntelliDose. Now, depending on what you're growing, this is either going to be one of the most helpful tools you've ever had, or it probably won't be required. So if you're in, let's say, a leafy green NFT system, you're using 100% of A, 100% of B, and pH lower. So there really is no scheduling. That's just what you're feeding constantly all of the time. But if you are doing a flowering annual and you have a lot of different additives that you're using, those additives change every single week. So different cultivars in different stages will have different nutrient requirements. And that can get very time consuming to manage the ratios and to make sure that all of your additives are being added at the proper amounts and at the proper times. So the scheduling here, basically the way that this one is set up, this is a good example, is that we've got every 7 days, we have a change. So the nutrients go up as the plants are maturing, we get higher nutrient levels, and we're using the additives and the supplements in different ratios. Now, this can look a bit confusing, and I know for a lot of people, the first time that you do a schedule is a bit confusing, but that's what I'm here for. I can help you out to get your schedule set up. The best part about this is that you can actually save this schedule. So once you've got it dialed in, you can save it. You can name it whatever you want. You can say, tomato summer. You can have a tomato winter schedule. You can have all of these saved so that you can just open them up and use them whenever you want to. Changes are really easy to make. If I wanted to change the nutrient for this day, just go in there and save it. But because all of the scheduling is done, when you go back to the readings page, this is why you can't actually make changes in here, because the unit is defaulting to the schedule. If you were to tell it that you didn't have a schedule attached, then simply you just put all of your set points here. So you're able to just change your EC set point, your night set point, and the different ratios here. So feel free, like I said earlier, to reach out to me after the webinar, and we can kind of go over ratios and how that works for your specific nutrient recipe. The other aspect that we have is our data logging. So data is all important. Everybody needs to know what our readings were, what we activated, how much nutrient we used, when were things dosed, what were temperatures of our reservoir, when did we irrigate. So all of that data is stored here in your charts. Now, with a doser, the history screen, as we call it, is usually very boring. And that's actually really good because you don't really want big, huge spikes in EC and pH. That would be very dangerous. So ideally, it looks just like this, and it's a really boring history screen. As you can see with the history, we've got lots of different options here. You can just, say last week, last 6 hours, or you can choose a very specific history time. So you could say from yesterday, like right now it says at 4 a.m., at 4:05 a.m. till yesterday at 10 a.m. just to get that one specific history set point. So you can imagine how many different ways you can look at the history that you've got in your data. Here under options, this is important when you're running a lot of different data. It's kind of hard sometimes to see the difference in colors. You can actually change the colors here to make them a little bit easier on the eye. So if that's, if you want to be looking at your nutrient dosing status and your pH status, you may want to change those colors to make it a bit easier. And then we just want to make sure that we apply the changes. The other nice part about the history is that we can export it. So if you want to, you can actually go in and say, you could even say, however long of time that you wanted, from start to end, what data do I want to export? And you can export it to a CSV or an Excel spreadsheet. And then this way you can manipulate the data however you want. Depending on where you're located and what you're growing, some cities and counties are requiring very specific water usage reports and needing to know exactly how much nutrients you've gone through. So you can extrapolate that data from the CSV file to be able to turn in your reports. So I am going to now switch over to the climate controller. So the climate controller, the IntelliClimate, is what I like to call like the sister product for the IntelliDose. Now the IntelliClimate is focused specifically for indoor growing. So for the indoor guys, this is the one that you really want to take a look at. This system here, the Autogrow software, can run up to 10 different IntelliClimates and 10 different IntelliDoses. So you can have all of your controllers from all of your different grow rooms in one user interface, which allows you to remotely access them from wherever you are. You can also have, the one login with different controllers in different locations. So if you've got a whole lot of different, controllers, they can all be in one place. Let's just see here. Sorry, guys. Of course, the day that we're doing the webinar is the day that the cloud server is doing maintenance. Always goes that way. Oh, okay. Let's see. Well, we can kind of talk through the screen at least until I can get back online and show you. But as you'll see here, you've got your temperatures and your humidity, your light levels and your CO2 all across the top of the page. So really easily accessed. The circles will turn red if they are outside of your set points, just like on the IntelliDose. Oh, come on. Okay, there we go. And just so you know, a little side note because of that, if the internet goes down, and I want to be very clear because I know that growers worry about this, it will not change the function of the IntelliDose or the IntelliClimate. They will still function 100%. So if you get a little blip like that in the cloud, which as we all know just happens, don't worry, your plants are perfectly fine. Everything is functioning exactly how you have it set. The internet connection has nothing to do with how the controller will actually run it, other than the fact that if your internet was to go down, you just wouldn't be able to remotely access it. But don't be worried, the controllers are functioning as they're supposed to. So we're in here now. So let's kind of go down to the beginning again. So we'll do just basic general settings. Once again, units, Fahrenheit or Celsius, how you want your dates to work. This is where I was talking about you could have 10 different controllers attached, and you can name each device so that you can actually say, grow room 1, grow room 2, however it works the best for you. On both the doser and the climate controller, it's important that once you get it dialed in, that you save the settings to the disk. If something was to happen and a controller was to fail, or you had some sort of power outage and the history was lost or something like that, you would be able to go in and restart the unit with all of your old configurations, so you don't have to go through and do it all a second time. So it's just nice to have that backup. The functions with the IntelliClimate, basically you just tell it what you have attached. And it's important with any climate controller that you don't ever tell it that something is attached that's not, because the unit will try and activate things. And if they think, for example, that they're activating an air conditioner, but the temperature isn't going down, then that sends off a warning that something's wrong with the air conditioner. So we want to make sure that if we don't actually have an air conditioner connected, we don't choose air conditioner, and maybe we just choose fan 2 if we really just have 2 fan banks. Going through, we can run fans, air conditioners, heaters, CO2 sensors, of course, and then we can do injection or extraction for CO2. Most people function between the 0 to 2,000 parts per million range, but we do have a higher range of CO2, especially important for mushroom farmers. Here again, there's that mute buzzer. If you don't want the buzzer on the controller actually making noise, you want to make sure it's muted. We can run dehumidifiers and humidifiers or pulsed foggers. Multiple light banks, which is nice. So you can spread your lights between 2 different light banks, which allows for not such a large power pull when all of the lights come on at one time. It also gives you some backups in the fail safes, which we'll talk about in just a minute. Are the lights air cooled? Do you have over temperature sensors on the lights? Do you have an outside temperature sensor? If you live in a really hot area, this is important. So if you're using outside air to cool down your room, but you live in an area where it can get very warm in the summer, for example, you may not want to bring hot air into the room to cool it down. So if you have an outside temperature sensor, you can have a set point that says if it's above 80 degrees outside, I want you to default to my air conditioner. And then all of those settings can be determined by you. Second environment sensors. So if your room is larger than about 25 by 25, I usually recommend a second sensor so that we can be making decisions based off averages and make sure that we're not getting any microclimates in the grow room. And intruder alarms. If somebody opens the door when you don't think anybody should be opening the door, you will get an alert that says somebody just opened the door. That's a big risk management feature. So that's kind of the functions. We're going to come back to advanced settings in just a second here. So once again, just like in the IntelliDose, if you click on the air temp, you will have your minimum and your maximum temperatures and the alarms. So if it goes below 58.9 or above 84.9, it's going to go ahead and send you a text and an email to let you know. The targets are a bit different on the way that the IntelliClimate functions. So targets are determined by the controller itself. So what's happening is when the IntelliClimate says, I'm going to activate the AC because it's too warm in the room, it's taking into account what effect is that having. Is the temperature dropping fast? Is it dropping slow? Are we getting to our set points? If we are, then the targets will stay pretty stable. If we're noticing that the temperature isn't coming down as quickly as we like, we may think that there's something wrong with the AC. There could be some sort of failure. So then the unit's deciding, now, am I going to turn on fans as a backup for my AC? Or, how am I going to do that? So the targets are always adjusting based on what effect the different components that are being activated have on the environment itself. So for example, the humidity right now, like our target is 65%. But if we're running too low, so if the humidity is, let's say, at like 58 or 59% in the room, then we may actually let it get a little bit warmer to build up some more humidity. So that target will be adjusting also depending on what we're trying to accomplish. Light levels. So if your light levels fall below a certain amount, you can have the alarm on so that if it thinks it's supposed to be daytime, that it will tell you if the lights did not turn on. And we have the same thing for CO2. So if your CO2 goes too low or too high, you can get an alert, and then what your target set points are. The alarm settings here, we know that if the power has gone off, we're going to get an alert to tell us that the power has gone off. And then the fail safes, which we'll talk about in just a second. If a fail safe has occurred, that we're going to get a text or an email. And then we also have the alarm delay here. So we can change this. Let's just say 5 minutes. If anything goes outside of your set points for 5 minutes, you're going to get a text. So when you come down here to the set points, once again, we're using the schedule here, and I'll show you that in just 1 second. So I can't actually make changes here, but you can see what the set points are. So this will show you exactly where we're going. So we have both light banks are activated to come on at 6 p.m. and to run for 16 hours. We have a daytime humidity, a nighttime humidity, and a max humidity. If we hit this max humidity, it means basically all fans on, AC on, dehumidifier on, everything we need to do to get that humidity down. And then we've got day temps and night drops. So this is really important because the differential between your night and day temperatures is important for plants. And so we have the day temp that we set, and then we have a night drop. If for some reason it was very cold in the room and we couldn't get above 70, let's say that day, we were running heaters, but it just, we're trying to keep up, it would still drop 9 degrees. So we don't actually have a nighttime temperature setting. We just know how much we want it to drop between the day and the night temperature. And then our CO2 set point. Now, then we've just got some basic statistics, which is really nice to know. So how much light have we had in the last 24 hours? And how much CO2 injection have we been running? So far at this time, we've had 41 minutes of CO2 injection for the last 24 hours. And then just this setting here that talks you through day and night. Let's go to, I want to show you the schedule. So the schedule for the climate controller is very similar to how the scheduling is done for the doser. Basically, you have light banks. So there's multiple ways to run lights. You have light bank 1 or light bank 2, alternating light banks, so that you can have one turn on one day and the other turn on at another time, or both. And most growers will just use both light banks because they want all their lights on at one time. You have how long you want or what time you want the lights to come on, how long you want them to run, very easy to change if you want them to run for 12 hours, what your day temperature will be, your relative humidity for day, night, and your maximum humidity, and you can change your CO2 settings here. Now, the nice part about a schedule like this, I just added another day, is that you don't have to be there to adjust. As the plants grow, they're going to need more CO2 as they get bigger and bigger and bigger. So you start with a low CO2 and you get to a higher CO2. Also, you have some plants that have different light schedules. So during vegetative growth, they'll have a very long light schedule, and during flowering, they'll have a very short light schedule. So you can actually have all of that pre-programmed into the schedule, and the unit will know when to update. So simply here, you can say, okay, day 22, so that's 7 days later. Say, okay, this is still a 12-hour, and now I want to go to 1,000 parts per million CO2. You hit save, and now on these days, those changes will automatically happen. Start dates, once again, you can choose the start date. So if I want to redo this again in 2 months, I just choose the start date then, and the whole schedule will just repopulate. We've also got the charting here. Now, charting for the climate controller is a whole lot more information than the doser, of course. And you will actually have a lot of activity in an environment because your temperatures and your humidities are changing all the time. CO2 levels are adjusting. When you're in the history screen, you can easily add or subtract, different readings and targets that you don't want to look at. So if you're not using an outside temperature sensor, you can just, block it off right there so it doesn't show up. If you're not interested, in the targets or whatnot, you can do that here and that'll take them off of there. So you can really dial in this history screen to be exactly what you want it to be. You can come down here and you see you've got, of course, we can see what happened yesterday. We can see what happened last week, what happened in the last hour. You can also do your history settings here. So how, like the certain amount that you want to see. So you can say, this specific period, last Wednesday to last Friday, what was happening in the environment. And you've got all of the different readings and attributes. So it's really important. So there's one thing to know what the CO2 in the room is. The other is to know when the CO2 injection was happening. It's for dialing in and being really efficient. We don't want to waste any energy, and we don't want to waste CO2. We don't want to waste anything. We want to be very efficient. So one of the ways that we dial our CO2 in is we say, okay, we know that ambient CO2 is, let's just say 400 parts per million. So we want to inject up to 1,000 parts per million because that's what the plants are calling for at this growth stage. Now you may say, okay, I want to see how long it takes for that CO2 to go down. So you can watch on your data screen, the CO2 will rise to 1,000, and then it may take 5, 10, 20, 30 minutes for it to get back down to close to ambient. And then we can inject again. Or you can just always run it right at 1,000. The grower has you can look at this data, use the data to make better decisions for your growing operation and to be more efficient. So we can tell not only what the humidity is, but when the dehumidifier comes on. We can tell when the air conditioner comes on and what effect does that have on the humidity. So we can make better decisions based on all of this data. And once again, you can export it all to a CSV file that then you can manipulate the data. So the history on the climate controller is amazing because you have all of the data that you need in one place. So I know we're going a little long. I'll touch on the advanced settings with you guys, and then we'll get to some of your questions. So the advanced settings, this is what separates a smart, like an intelligent climate controller from a knob and dial timer and thermostat, humidistat that a lot of growers use. Because we have it with such advanced settings that we can dial it in, the plants will get exactly what they need when they need it. So we have offsets. So when do we turn, fans on? When do we turn on heaters? When do we turn on air conditioners? For example, here, we're going to turn the fans on when we're 2 degrees above the set point, and we'll turn them off when we're 2 degrees below. But we're not going to turn the heater on right then. We're going to wait until it goes -6 degrees, and then we will, or -6 degrees below your set point, then we turn on a heater. And we do this so that we're making sure that we're not running, a fan and then immediately turning on a heater, because that's inefficient. So we want the room to kind of balance itself out and then only use these expensive energy consuming components when necessary. We've also got lots of rules. So the rules will allow the unit to know how to make changes. So for example, like I talked about a little bit earlier, if the relative humidity is low, then we can raise the temperature up a bit in the room. So we're allowing it to get warmer to build up the humidity. We've got minimum periodic air change rules. So you can have a day and a night purges of the room, which is really important. In a lot of grow rooms, the CO2 can build up a lot during the night period. So it may be important to purge and get that CO2 out of the room. It's also just healthy to kind of refresh the air. We've got set point ramping. So ramping means that we, at the day and night transition, we wait 30 minutes before activating components. So for example, we know that we want to be warmer during the day, but we're going to wait 30 minutes before we turn on a heater. And we do that because we know that once the lights come on, they create a lot of heat. So rather than running a heater when the lights are just turning on, we're going to let the lights turn on. We're going to let that warm up the room. And then we're going to turn on the heater if the lights aren't enough. And so, these kind of settings, of course, are all user defined, but it's important because we can save you a lot of money by actually just being more efficient. The CO2 rules, only allowing CO2 when the light is on, which is important. Lighting, like lamp cool down times, so we know that if the power goes out, how long we wait before we turn the lamps back on. And then our fail-safe settings. So for example, if the temperature exceeds 80 degrees, we know that something's happening with the air conditioner because we've told it we want it to be 73. We've told the air conditioner to come on. If the air conditioner is running and we're not having a cooling effect, the unit will determine that there is something wrong with the air conditioner and will activate a fail-safe, which turns on a fan. Then you will get a text that says the fail-safe has been activated, and you'll know exactly, you'll say, okay, the AC isn't working right. So then you can go fix the AC. Once again, risk management. If your AC is to fail, you could have huge crop loss. It's really important that you know that immediately and that you get in there and you figure out what's happening. We have some safety fail-safes. If the CO2 gets too high, we're going to turn on the fans to purge out all that CO2. If the fans are not working, so the AC comes on, but the cooling effect isn't happening, so then we start turning on fans and the room is still getting warmer, then we're going to start turning off your lights, because we know if we can't cool down the room, then we need to just turn off the lights and put it into night mode until you're able to figure out why it's not working properly. We also have dehumidifier overrides. So if your dehumidifier isn't working properly, the AC will come on. If the AC isn't dehumidifying enough, then your fans will come on. So as you can tell, this is all risk management. It's all very important that you have access to all of this remotely so that you know immediately if something goes wrong. One of the other really cool aspects of the new IntelliGrow Online is that you have actual remote tech support. So if you were having an issue with one of your controllers, you could give us a call and we can log in and we can and work with you through the issue and try and figure out what's happening and then get you fixed up, which is really nice and makes tech support very, very easy. So that is the IntelliGrow software. Just to wrap it up, labor savings, we talked about that. Lots less time spent on your reservoir, less time doing your irrigations, no more hand watering, which we all know is not as accurate as actually having an irrigation system put in. Healthier plants. So we've got healthier plants because they're being fed proper nutrient and pH levels every single feed. They're being irrigated on a regular schedule. And we've got healthier plants because we have a healthy environment. We're managing pests and disease by keeping temperatures and humidities in checkpoint. We're giving them proper levels of CO2 for their growth stage. And risk management, text and email alerts. You will know immediately if something falls outside of your set point. And the big offer today. So the Intelli link that I discussed earlier, where you can connect up to 4 controllers with it, it is valued at $150, and we're giving away 1 free Intelli link with each Autogrow subscription up for about the next month until February 16th. So if you're interested in getting online and using the Autogrow software, please reach out to us. And if you sign up for the Autogrow, you will get a free Intelli link. And then just a little reminder, February 21st, we're going to be doing a webinar. Kevin will be back with me, and we're going to be getting really deep into grow room controls. So we'll be talking a lot more about temperature and why that's important and how you want to control it and how it works with humidity, different types of lighting and different lighting for different grow room setups. And then we're going to delve more into CO2. Let's see. So there is a lot of different ways to reach out to us, and it would be fantastic if you guys reached out to us and let us know a little bit more about your project so that we can do a specific education for you about what exactly you need. When you go to the intelli.autogrow.com page, sorry, it was mentioned back here, there is an actual intercom chat board that you can get to. So you can just hit the chat button. You can ask us any questions that you have. There's tons of support articles on there that talk all about automation and about these controllers specifically. So, please check that out. And if you guys have any questions, I'm going to pull up the panel right now and see if we've got any questions going here. Okay, I'm kind of looking here right now. Okay, oh gosh, we got a lot of questions, guys. Let me just kind of go through here. Yes, so if someone buys one of these, will we help them? Yes, of course we will. That's what I love to do. I like to get you, I like to get everybody dialed in just perfectly. So if you are concerned that it seems a little bit difficult or you've got questions, please just reach right out to me. And yes, 2 stages of lights. The way that it works, you can actually stagger the way that the lights turn on. So you can have 1 light come on, and then you can wait a certain amount of time before the next light comes on. So we have, for a good example of that is that we've got shipping container customers, and they run their lights for about 18 hours in the finishing stage of the plants. But in the propagation, they only want to run it for maybe 14 hours. So the first light bank comes on, and then we have a 4-hour delay until the next light bank comes on. So that's one way that you can run it. Most people will just do 1 light bank that turns on, and then they wait maybe 15 minutes, and then they turn on the second light bank, just so that you don't have such a power pull. Let's see here. Yes, and then, yeah, can you have 2 light stages to run independently when the heat is too high? Yes, you can. So you can actually have it so if the heat gets too high, just 1 light bank goes off, and then the second light bank goes off if it still gets hotter in there. And yes, all of the outputs are 24-volt DC. So if you have components that are running off of like 240 volt, which are larger, we can just run a simple little IDEC relay to connect them to the IntelliClimate. We do not have the ability with these controllers right now to run moisture sensors, but we are always looking at doing different options in sensors. Our multi-grow, our larger multi-zone controller, can run moisture probes if that's necessary for your situation. Let's see. Okay, so some of our growers are using the pH and the EC mini dosers. So no, those do not connect online. Those are just simple, simple dosers that monitor your pH and just add pH lower as necessary. So you would have to upgrade to an IntelliDose if you wanted to have the remote access and the data logging. So I think, you guys, that was all of the questions that you've got for me. I really appreciate everybody staying this morning and kind of hanging out. Once again, reach out to offer.autogrow.com. You can fill out a contact form and we will be in touch. You can go to intelli.autogrow.com to find out more about the Intelli link and the Autogrow software, different subscription rates, different package deals. And if you're interested in getting one of the free Intelli links before February 16th, please reach out to us and let us know, and we'll make sure that you get taken care of. So I really appreciate everybody's time. Oh, it looks like I got one more here. Oh, yeah, talking about the asking about the internet connection. So yes, so yeah, if the internet connection does go down, the controllers will still function. That's a really important aspect of the IntelliDose and the IntelliClimate. They are actual computers themselves, so they have all of the settings saved, and they are making decisions based on that. If the internet was to go down, they are still going to function exactly like they're supposed to. You just won't have the remote access, but you'll get a text like saying that the power has failed, for example. So you or one of your workers could go run over and make sure that everything is working fine. So yeah, thank you for that question, just to clarify. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate everybody being here, and I look forward to you guys all showing up on February 21st when we get a little bit deeper into grow room control. Have a good day.